Hello, hi, a very happy good evening. So this is Krishna and we've been talking about the story of life on earth, and that's biology. So welcome to my new series, that is New Beginning. So I hope you're enjoying my session. So here we are starting our preparation for NEET exam 2022. So we're already done with 3 classes down the line, and here we are, I guess 2 classes. So I've been teaching you the process of digestion and absorption. So we're done with 2 concepts already. So the passage of food inside the alimentary canal and the list of digestive glands. So today we're going to talk about the exact process of digestion. So thank you so much for joining my session well before time. So it's really a pleasure connecting with all of you. So hi Roshna, Roshni, hello, very good evening. Hi Supriya, hi Dharni, hi Bhavya, hello, and a very happy good evening. So thank you so much for joining my lecture today. So please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. So please lend us your support of spreading the word, passing the link of my channel so that we have a wider reach, so that more people benefit from this free platform. So though it is free, the efforts are the same. So the faculties are not having any bias towards paid class and unpaid class. So we are giving in the same effort so that at least one end of the globe people are benefiting. So please help us in this reach and in this support. So that will be the biggest help, and I will be always grateful to you for this. Well, so we have been talking about digestion and absorption chapter. So we are done with 2 concepts. So we have spoken about the head and the other parts. So now we're going to talk about the exact process of digestion. So how digestion happens. So can you quickly tell me what all did you eat for lunch today? So how many of you are having coffee or tea looking into my lecture? Yes. So you guys are perfect examples of how digestion happens. Yes, how many of you are eating right now? How many of you, what did you have for lunch? Can you just put it in the chat box so that we can exactly see how it's getting digested today? Come on, quick. Make it quick. You had rice dal. Okay, Dharni. So I guess, so every day you have rice dal, because previously also you told me you had rice dal. So right now, are you having coffee tea? How about the others? What did you have for lunch? Anything interesting? So anyone who had pizza? Anyone who had something interesting other than roti, rice and dal? Yes, anything interesting? So you had chapati and sabji. Okay. So I had chole today. So I had chole bhatura. So how about you guys? So Supriya, what did you have? Sambar rice with potato curry. Wow, it sounds yummy. Okay. So you guys had a variety of food, right? So even I had a good variety. So I had kheer, chole bhatura, and yeah, it was tasty. So I'm hungry for the next round. Fine, so we all had good food. So now how is our body breaking it down? So your body breaks it down into terms that is understandable so that it can make energy, right? So whatever is there in NCERT, you're trying to decode it with the help of me. So once you understand, you will be able to clear NEET exam, you will be able to become doctor, right? So Supriya had sambar rice. Okay, so yeah, there are 2 people who had sambar, and one had chapati, one had rice, and I had chole. Wow, we are a variety. Good. So just much in the same way, your body is trying to break down these complex food molecules into simpler terms and use these molecules to make energy, to proceed with other metabolism. So that is the entire concept, right? So you know the function of digestive glands, you know the passage, how it moves from one organ to the other organ, what are the splinters, etc. Now, how exactly the process of digestion happens? So all of you here, we all had, okay, so let's make a sambar. So I guess if I'm not wrong, so you add dal in sambar. Right? So let's take the base ingredient as dal. So dal has a lot of protein, right? So proteins are polymers of amino acid. So now your dal, which has proteins, has to be broken down into the individual amino acid, right? Because amino acids are divided into essential and non-essential amino acids. So our body is in need of amino acid. So how is our body going to break this down into the respective proteins? So here we have Dharni who had rice. So ultimately the end product of rice is starch or glucose. So how is your body going to break this down into your glucose? So that is the entire talk for today. Right? So with this introduction, let's move forward. So welcome to the new beginning. So this is lecture 3. So we are talking about the process of digestion. So moving forward, so I hope you remember the route map of food, right? So as we go forward, it's not that you will forget what we read before. So every day you will keep revising the previous concept. That is the only way by which you can recollect the concept. I am talking about the reality. So biology is vast. At the same time, biology is your base for NEET exam. Yes, biology has n number of examples, thousands and thousands of examples, I understand. But the more you revise, the more better you become, right? Okay, so every day we will revise the previous portion, but we will do it a bit quickly so that we don't run behind the syllabus. Fine? Yes, so what is the route map of food? Can you tell me? So we start with the mouth. So we ingest through the mouth, it goes into the buccal cavity or the oral cavity. Then it moves into the pharynx, which is the common passage. So then it moves into the esophagus. So once inside the esophagus, it moves inside the stomach. And from the stomach, it moves inside the small intestine. So from the small intestine into the large intestine. So from the large intestine and finally out into the anus, right? So this is the entire passage. Hi Rani, yes, a very happy good evening. After a long time you're here. I guess you're very busy with your work. But anyways, thank you so much for joining my lecture today. So please do like, share and subscribe. So in your buccal cavity or the oral cavity, you have your teeth and you have your tongue, right? So I hope you remember the parts of the teeth. So what are the parts of the teeth? So the teeth has crown, neck and root, right? So what are the types of arrangement in your teeth? So we have picodont. So that is a tooth is embedded in the jawbone socket, right? So then we have diffeodont. We have two types of teeth in a lifetime. So one is milk teeth and one is adult permanent teeth. So I write adult. So there are types of teeth which only occur in your adult stage, that is monophodont, like your premolars and the last of molars, right? So then we have heterodont. So heterodont is the four type of teeth that you have. You have incisors, canines, premolars and molars, right? So these are the types of arrangement. Okay, you watch the recorded lecture. All right. Yes, I'm good. Thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. Good. So this is about teeth. So what is the formula of adult teeth? 2, 1, 2, 3 by 2, 1, 2, 3. This is on one jaw. So we have two jaws. So this makes it 32 teeth. So after that we move into the pharynx. So pharynx is a common passage. So it opens into the food pipe as well as into the windpipe. So the windpipe is your trachea and the opening of your trachea is known as glottis. So glottis is covered by epiglottis. So epiglottis prevents the entry of food into the windpipe, right? Okay, so esophagus is a passage, is a thin long tube that runs posteriorly to your neck, your diaphragm, etc. So esophagus moves the contents into the stomach. So here we have your gastroesophageal splinter. So stomach is a muscular bag. It has four regions. What are they? So it has cardiac, it has fundus, it has main body part, and then it has pyloric. So now pyloric opens into the small intestine. So here we have your pyloric splinter. So how many parts you have in your small intestine? So small intestine has three parts. We have duodenum, we have jejunum, and we have ileum. Right? So now ileum opens into the large intestine. So large intestine also has three parts, that is cecum, colon and rectum. Right? So your ileum opens into the cecum. So here we have the ileocecal valve. Ileocecal valve. So you have three parts of the colon. So you have ascending, transverse, descending and sigmoidal. So finally rectum opens into the anus. So this is the passage of food inside your alimentary canal. Well, so now next we spoke about the walls inside an alimentary canal. What are the walls inside your alimentary canal? So we have four wall layers, right? So the outermost is serosa. I hope you remember. Then we have muscularis. So then you have submucosa. Then you have mucosa. Right? So these are the different layers on the walls of your alimentary canal. So serosa is the outermost layer, right? So serosa is made up of thin mesothelium. Fine. So muscularis, it is made up of smooth muscles. So it has two orientation, right? So on the inner side, it is circular. And on the outer side, it is longitudinal. So then you have the submucosal layer. So submucosal layer, it is made up of loose connective tissue. So this houses your nerves, your blood and your lymph into the digestive system, right? So you have glands in this region in your duodenum. So duodenum in this layer has glands and the name of the gland is your Brunner's gland. Clear? Are you able to recollect from previous chapter? Yes, very good, good. So all of you are texting, which means you are very thorough. So you understood yesterday's class. Fantastic. So the last layer is mucosa. This is the innermost. So it has irregular folds. The folds in the stomach is known as rugae and the folds in the intestine is known as gland. So then you have the liver and then you have the pancreas, right? So salivary glands are of 3 pairs. So the first pair of salivary gland, it's buffering. Okay, so here in my monitor it is clear. So can you please refresh once again? So I guess the chat was disconnected. So can you refresh once again, please? It's buffering. Okay, so kindly refresh. It will be fine. Is it fine now? So can we move forward? I guess it's fine. So can I continue now? Okay, so let's move forward. So I'm continuing. So we have 3 pairs of salivary gland. Now it's clear. All right. So the first thing is your parotid gland. So this is the large and its only function, its function as a gland is to secrete bile, right? So how is the liver present? So liver is present in the upper abdominal cavity, but right below your diaphragm. So if this is my diaphragm, so my liver is like this. So liver is divided into 2 lobes, 1 lobe, 2nd lobe, right? So they are known as hepatic lobules. So hepatic lobules are made up of hepatic cells which are arranged in cords. So surrounding the liver, I have a connective tissue. So that is known as my Gilson's capsule. I hope you are able to recollect. So liver produces bile, right? So you remember. So once again it's buffering. So once again, can you refresh it? So I guess it's clear now. Is it clear now, Bhavya? Okay. So now we are talking about the liver. So I told you liver is a gland and it has its own transport system. So this is the hepatic duct, right? And liver secretes bile. So bile comes here. So here I have my gallbladder. So it also has its own duct. So this duct is known as my cystic duct. So both the ducts join. So this is my common bile duct. So common bile duct has which splinter? So here I have a splinter that is known as splinter of Boyden. Are you able to recollect? Right. So now it comes. So here I have my pancreas. So pancreas also has a duct. So this is my pancreatic duct. So now these 2 ducts join together like this. So it becomes the common hepatopancreatic duct. Right. So the base of this duct is swollen like this. So this is known as your ampulla of Vater. So here you have a particular splinter. So here the name of the splinter is splinter of Oddi. Right, and this opens into the C-shaped duodenum. So I hope this is clear. So this is from yesterday's lecture. I am just giving you a recap, right? Okay, so pancreas is heterocrine gland, meaning it is both endocrine as well as heterocrine, and it secretes pancreatic juices for the process of digestion. Pakka? Clear? Okay, so we move into today's topic, that is the process of digestion. Ma'am, now everything is clear. So how exactly the dal chawal that I had, or the roti sabji I had, or the sambar rice I had, how is it going to get digested? So that is the question for today. So here we move forward. So the process of digestion. So let me tell you, the process of digestion is both mechanical as well as a chemical process. What? The process of digestion is both mechanical as well as chemical. So why it is mechanical? Because we have to break down the particles. So you do chewing, that is mechanical. So why do I say chemical? Because it mixes with digestive juices, right? So the process of digestion is both mechanical as well as chemical. Fine. So your process of digestion starts in the buccal or the oral cavity. So you ingest the food through your mouth, right? So once in your mouth, it enters into your buccal or your oral cavity, right? So here is where the process of digestion begins. So what is present in your buccal or your oral cavity? You have your teeth or your tongue, right? So they begin the process of your digestion. So what does your teeth help to do? The teeth helps in chewing the food, right? It helps it to chew it properly. So everything is properly chewed. It becomes homogenized, right? So your teeth helps in chewing, right? And your tongue also helps in chewing. Now, once your food is chewed, right, it also mixes with the saliva. Saliva is secreted into the buccal cavity. So your buccal cavity or the oral cavity, along with the teeth and tongue, it also has saliva. Now the food mixes properly with the tongue. Because of the chewing movement of the teeth and the tongue, the food mixes thoroughly with the saliva, right? Now this is known as bolus. The moment you ingest food through the mouth, you chew it with the help of your teeth and your tongue, and now the food mixes with your saliva. So this is your bolus, right? We no longer call it as food. The moment it enters inside your buccal cavity, within minutes or seconds, it becomes bolus. Clear? Yes? Okay. So chewing is also technically known as mastication. So mastication is a term you will come across in your NCERT. So this means it is chewing. Okay? Fine. So now we move forward. So it is a mechanical as well as a chemical process. So the buccal cavity performs two major functions. So one is mastication of food. Okay? So what is mastication? So mastication is chewing of food. So who helps in chewing of food? Your tongue and your teeth. Hi Satyinder, yes, hello, I am really good. A very happy good evening. So thank you so much for joining my lecture today. So please do like, share and subscribe. Okay, fine. So the next function of your oral or your buccal cavity is the facilitation of swallowing. So once you chew, your food has to be swallowed. Only when it is swallowed, it can reach your stomach, right? So just like that, from your buccal cavity, how it can reach your stomach? So you have to swallow the food. So swallowing of food is technically called as deglutition. So swallowing of food is known as deglutition. Okay, fine. So now moving forward, so now how does it proceed? So your process of digestion starts in the mouth itself, in the buccal or your oral cavity. So now your food is thoroughly mixed. So your food is thoroughly chewed with the help of your teeth plus tongue plus saliva, right? So now it becomes your bolus. Fine. But this is not digestion. Digestion is breaking down into simpler particles, right? So your saliva here is very powerful. So basically, why it is mixing with saliva, I'll tell you. So saliva has many constituents. So saliva consists of electrolytes. So saliva consists of mucus, and saliva also consists of enzymes. So it is the mucus which the bolus mixes with. So when I eat, my food particles mix with the mucus of the saliva, which helps in the lubrication, in the movement of food down my alimentary canal. Okay? Yes? आज इस चैनल पर UPSC पेपर डिस्कशन हो रहा, सच में? I didn't know. Maybe I am not following my channel. So I didn't know if it happened. So you saw the UPSC discussion? Okay, so that's really nice. Fine. So your mucus mixes with the food and it becomes bolus, right? So what are electrolytes? Your saliva has ions like Na+, K+, etc. Your saliva also has enzymes like your amylase, your lysozyme. Okay? So what is the function of this amylase? So suppose if you people say you had sambar rice, right? So it breaks down the starch into maltose. So starch is a polysaccharide and maltose is a disaccharide, right? So here the amylase comes into picture. So this happens at a pH of 6.8. So this is the reason I say the process of digestion happens in the oral or the buccal cavity itself. Okay? Yes? So very good. So nice of you here, Satyendra. So thank you anyways for joining our session today. So please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, pass the link of our channel to your juniors, seniors, your siblings, etc. Please. Okay. Right? So this is the function of this enzyme. So what is the function of lysozyme? So lysozyme is antibacterial. So what is antibacterial? Anti-terrorist, anti-corruption, against something. So here anti means against something. So here your lysozyme works against the bacteria, killing the bacteria. Right? So this is the function or the process that happens in your oral or your buccal cavity. So saliva is secreted into the oral cavity. So you have electrolytes Na+, K+, Cl-, bicarbonates, etc. So saliva has two enzymes, salivary amylase and lysozyme. Okay, so I have overwritten on the wording part itself. So let me erase what I have written so that it becomes clear to you. So I guess I skipped one slide because I had a blank slide. Okay, so 30% of the process of hydrolysis happens in the buccal or the oral cavity itself. So here you have a particular enzyme, that is amylase, that works in pH of 6.8. So lysozyme is antibacterial and it prevents the infection of food. Right? Okay. So now from the oral or the buccal cavity, it has to move down further. Right? So the teeth, tongue and the saliva help in the mastication and mix up of the food thoroughly. They help in chewing the food and they mix up the food thoroughly so that it is evenly smashed. Right? So the mucus in the saliva helps in lubricating, helps in movement. So now the food is known as bolus. Right? Okay. So the bolus now enters the pharynx and from the pharynx it moves inside the esophagus. Right? So now how it moves from the pharynx, how it moves from the oral or buccal cavity inside the pharynx or into the esophagus by the process of swallowing. So this is my oral or buccal cavity. So here is my pharynx. So how does it move from my oral or buccal cavity into the pharynx? By the process of swallowing. Right? So deglutition is also known as swallowing. Now once inside the esophagus, how does it move down till the stomach? By the continuous or the successive movements of the muscles that is present, that is peristalsis. You can see, so from the esophagus, how does it come down? How does it move down into the stomach? By the successive waves of your muscle movement, and that is known as peristalsis. Yes, Bhavya, you're right. Okay, so this is known as peristalsis. The successive waves of muscular contraction is your peristalsis. Fine? Okay. So moving forward, so digestion of food. So now your food has reached the stomach. From where? From the mouth. Right? So now what is the food called as? Bolus. So now the bolus has reached the stomach. Now what happens? Your stomach is capable of storing the food for 4 to 5 hours. It can store your food without any problem. Right? Okay. So stomach has gastric glands in the mucosal layer of the alimentary canal, which we have already seen. We haven't seen what is gastric gland, but we know there exists a gland in the stomach, that is in the mucosal layer, that is your gastric gland. Right? So gastric gland has 3 types of cells. So glands are basically groups of tissue. So now this tissue or the gland has 3 types of cells. What are they? The first one is the mucus or the neck cell. So I guess I have a picture. Yeah. So we are talking about the mucus or the neck cell. So we have the chief cells. So I have the mucus secreting. So this is my, okay. So we'll come back to this a bit later. So first we have the mucus or the neck cell, right? They secrete mucus. It is very simple. So from the name it is clear, mucus secreting cells are mucus or your neck cells. Next we have peptic or the chief cells. They secrete the proenzyme, that is pepsinogen. So whenever an enzyme ends in nogen, it is in the inactive form. It is a stage before it becomes a complete enzyme. So that is why I use the prefix proenzyme. Fine? Okay. So the third type of cell that is present in your gastric gland is your parietal or your oxantic cells. Fine? So they secrete HCl and intrinsic factor. So what is intrinsic factor? So intrinsic factor is used in the absorption of certain vitamins. So once your components of your food are broken down, it has to be absorbed by the body, right? So that is why your intrinsic factor is utilized. Okay, fine. So now let's look into the figure. So you have your parietal cell. Parietal cell is also known as oxantic cell. So you have your chief cell and you have your mucus cell here. So this secretes your mucus. So we have 3 cells. Fine. So we know the role of the 3 cells. Now what do they do? So here we move forward. Okay. So now you have your mucus cells which secrete mucus. So then you have your peptic cells or your chief cells. So what do? They secrete an inactive enzyme, that is pepsinogen. Right? Okay. So now what are oxantic cells or parietal cells? Their main function is to secrete HCl. So when the pepsinogen is subjected to HCl, it becomes an active form, that is pepsin. So pepsin is the active form. So now what does this pepsin do? So pepsin breaks down the proteins in your food into peptides. Or peptoses. So this is the function of your pepsin. So your starch is broken down in the buccal or the oral cavity, right? So in your stomach, what happens? Your proteins are broken down. Okay. So if it's an infant, if it's a younger child, so yeah, small children have milk, right? So they have to digest milk protein. So you all agree milk has proteins? So milk proteins are known as casein. Okay. So now in case of an infant, so casein has to be broken into calcium paracaseinates. So this is done by renin. R-E-N-N-I-N. Okay. So in case of infants, you have this digestion, and in case of others, you have this happening inside your stomach. So this is how your gastric glands aid the process of digestion in your stomach. Fine. So here I have it written. So now when the food, that is the bolus, mixes with your gastric juices, it becomes chyme. The moment it enters the stomach, till the time it enters the stomach, it is bolus. So in the stomach, you have the secretion of the gastric glands by which your bolus mixes with the gastric juice, and now it is no longer called as bolus, but it is called as chyme. Fine? Okay. So the proenzyme pepsinogen is getting activated on subjection to HCl. So now this is a proteolytic enzyme. So lytic is breakdown. So this breaks down proteins, right? So pepsin converts proteins into peptoses and peptones. Fine? So your stomach is very acidic, right? So it has a pH of 1.8 to 2. So what if the walls of the alimentary canal are damaged because of this acidic pH? I have to protect my walls of my alimentary canal in the stomach also, right? So the mucus that is secreted by the mucus or the neck cell and the bicarbonate ions that is released, these protect the walls of the stomach from getting deteriorated because of the acidic pH. Clear? Yes? Okay. So renin converts your milk protein casein into calcium paracaseinates. So small amount of lipases and bicarbonates are also secreted by your gastric glands. So please keep that in mind. Along with mucus, along with your pepsinogen, along with your HCl and intrinsic factor, small amount of bicarbonate and lipases are also secreted. Fine? Okay. So now we are done with the stomach. Now we have to move into the small intestine, right? So before we move into the small intestine, from the stomach to the small intestine, we have bile coming from the liver and we have pancreatic juice coming from the pancreas. So we have our stomach. So let me say we have the stomach here and here we have the small intestine. So on the way, it connects my common hepatopancreatic duct. So my bile and my pancreatic juices join here. So what is the function? Right? Yes, you're right. So when you have one end that is in kidney, yes, very good, Dharni. Okay. So now what is the function of bile, pancreatic juice and intestinal juice released into the small intestine? So here we go. So first let's talk about your pancreatic juices. So before we go into pancreatic juices, let's talk about bile. So bile juice goes into the small intestine for the digestion of your fat molecules. You have fat molecules, right? Say for example, I had more amount of French fries, I had more amount of cheese. So some amount of fat content is there, right? So those fats also have to be broken down or emulsified, for which I need bile, right? So let's say bile has these compositions. So bile has bile pigments. So we know the bile pigments are bilirubin and bilirubirin. So next we have your bile salts, folate, tartarate, etc. So then we have your cholesterol. So these are the composition of your bile juice and they help in the breakdown of fat molecules. Okay, fine. Now talking about your pancreatic juice. So your pancreatic juice consists of inactive enzymes. These enzymes are activated upon entry into the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine. Fine? Okay, so what are the 6 enzymes that are present in the inactive state in your pancreatic juice? The first enzyme is your trypsinogen. So I told you anything that ends in nogen is inactive. Yes, so you have trypsinogen. So then you have chymotrypsinogen. Then you have procarboxypeptidase. So it is it is not exactly into the active state, right? So this is procarboxypeptidase, again an inactive enzyme, amylases, lipases and nucleases. So these are the 6 enzymes that is present in your pancreatic juice. So from the stomach, the bile juice, the pancreatic juice with these inactive enzymes moves into the duodenum. So the inactive enzymes have a particular term known as zymogen molecules. Clear? Okay. So now let's move forward. How exactly these enzymes are getting activated? So my chyme, my bile juice, my pancreatic juice, so they all enter the small intestine. So which part of the small intestine? That is duodenum. The moment they enter the duodenum, the first enzyme in your pancreatic juice, that is trypsinogen, it is activated into trypsin. How? Because of an enzyme that is known as enterokinase. So now who secretes the enterokinase? The goblet cells. To some extent this is done by your Brunner's gland. So Brunner's gland is in duodenum. Okay, plus the goblet cells, which secrete mucus. So these people secrete a particular enzyme that is enterokinase and they activate the first enzyme that is trypsin. Okay. Now this activated trypsin further activates all other enzymes. So chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidase. So every other enzyme is activated because of your trypsin. So first enzyme that gets activated is your trypsin. Okay. So it activates your chymotrypsin. So this is the active form. Nogen is the inactive form. Okay. So procarboxypeptidase becomes carboxypeptidase. Yes, and side by side your amylase, lipase and nucleases are also activated. Okay, so now all the enzymes are activated, but in the intestine you have an alkaline pH. Okay, in the stomach you had an acidic pH, back in the intestine you have an alkaline pH, because pancreatic juices, the enzymes in the pancreatic juices, they need alkaline environment. The alkaline environment is provided by the Brunner's gland. Fine? Okay. So now this is how it happens. So my peptodes are there, peptones, proteases and the remaining proteins. So these are broken down in the stomach because of pepsin. The other remaining proteins that are not broken down, they meet in the small intestine. Now all these are broken by trypsin, chymotrypsin, a procarboxypeptidase into dipeptides, into 2 peptides, an amino acid and a peptide bond. Okay, it is broken like this. So now if I have, though some amount of starch is already broken down in the salivary glands or in the buccal cavity, the further one is broken down here. Further starch is broken down into the small intestine. Say for example, you had lot of rice, some is done in the buccal cavity. The other starch is broken down into disaccharides in the small intestine. Then you have fats. Fats are made up of fatty acids and glycerols. So fats, in the presence of lipase, it is broken down into glycerides. So diglycerides into monoglycerides. Right? So then nucleic acids with the help of nucleases, they are broken down into nucleotides, then nucleosides. Right? So this is how they are broken down. But still it is not the final form. So it is diproteins, it is not yet amino acids, it is disaccharides, not yet monosaccharides. This is monoglycerides. Further it can be broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. So further breaking down is there. So this is the first step with the help of your pancreatic juice. So further what happens? Dipeptides, with the help of dipeptidases, it is broken down into amino acids. Right? Then maltose, which is a disaccharide, with the help of maltase, it is broken down into monosaccharides. So lactose is also a disaccharide, it is broken down into individual units. Then sucrose, again a polysaccharide, it is broken down, it is again a disaccharide, it is broken down into glucose and fructose. What is important? The enzyme in each case is very, very important. Okay, you should never forget the enzymes. So nucleotides, nucleotidases, nucleosides, nucleosidases, sugar and nitrogenous base. So then I have my di and monoglycerides. With the help of lipases, it is further broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. Fine. So this is where the process of digestion is almost done. So the major chunk of digestion happens in your small intestine. Right? What is invertase? Hold on, I will tell you in the next class. So invertase also plays a role in the conversion of your starch. Okay? Yes. So tomorrow when we solve question, I will tell you what is invertase, but a good question, but hold on. If you can find out before that, yes, find out, but I'll bring a question. Okay? Yeah. So the major chunk of your digestion, the process of digestion happens in the small intestine. Right? So now all of these are digested. So what happens to the undigested food? It goes into the large intestine. So your water, the drugs that you take, like your paracetamol, like your cold coffin, any tablet that you go to the doctor and you take. So drugs are getting absorbed in the large intestine, water is getting absorbed in the large intestine, and whatever is undigested, it is stored in the rectum. Right? Yes, and you release the whatever the undigested food is as your fecus. Clear? Is this clear to everyone? So with this, the process of digestion is done. So how the process of digestion happens? The process of digestion begins in the buccal cavity or the oral cavity. That is mainly because the saliva has certain enzymes like your salivary amylase. Then it moves into the stomach for further digestion. So in stomach, we have your gastric glands. Then we have the small intestine. So before that, we have the bile juice and the pancreatic juice joining into the picture. And finally, the process of digestion is done. Right? So what is remaining? Absorption. Absorption we will see, and the shortcuts along with the questions we will see in tomorrow's lecture. Right? So the major part of digestion is done. So tomorrow is the last day of the week. So we'll be saying a big goodbye to digestion. So Monday, I'll be starting with breathing and exchange of gas. So yes, I have to discuss diagram based questions. I have to tell you shortcuts. I have to teach you what is absorption. Bus. So we will end the chapter tomorrow. It's a weekend. So it is up to you to revise digestion properly. Clear? So Monday I'll be starting with breathing and exchange of gas. Yes, done and dusted. Very good. So thank you so much for joining my lecture. So I would like to end here. Yes, if you genuinely liked my way of teaching, so please do like, share and subscribe, and thank you so much once again for joining my lecture. This is me wishing you more and more, so don't hesitate to ask any doubts that you have. So put in your doubts here, any sentence that you're not able to comprehend, put it here. I'm ready to help always. So thank you once again. So this is me wishing you more and more. So stay tuned till tomorrow 5:15 and I'll be here for you. Thank you.